My father told me I was a failure in front of the family and said I'd never amount to anything. I stayed quiet, not knowing what to say. The next day, he called to apologize, but his words felt empty. It wasn't the first time he'd put me down, but this time, it felt different. The more I thought about it, the more I realized. Hey, I'm Matt, 38M, and I need to share something that's been eating at me for days. I've always tried to keep things to myself, but I just can't shake this feeling. It's like my whole world shifted, and I don't know where to go from here. To give you some context, I've always been the kind of person who tries to make everyone happy. I'm not perfect, but I've done my best to be a good son, a good brother, and a decent person. Growing up, I had an older brother, Adam, 42M, and we were raised in a pretty typical family. My parents weren't rich, but they weren't struggling either. The kind of family where hard work was expected and success was the goal. But the thing is, no matter how hard I tried, it felt like I could never meet my dad's standards. He was always pushing us to do more, to be better, to succeed. My brother Adam had no problem with it. He followed the path my dad laid out for him: college, a steady job, a nice house, all that stuff. But me? I always felt like I was under a microscope, like I was never doing enough, no matter how much I achieved. Now, I'm not trying to play the victim here, but I think I've spent most of my life trying to win my dad's approval, and the more I tried, the less it seemed like I ever got it. No matter what I did, he would find a way to remind me that I wasn't living up to his expectations. As I got older, I started to internalize it. The self-doubt, the feeling that no matter how hard I worked, it would never be good enough. It's something I've struggled with for years, but I kept pushing through. So, a few days ago, we had a family dinner at my parents' house. Nothing special, just a regular Sunday meal, with the usual assortment of family chatter. Adam and I arrived at the same time, and we sat down with our parents, the whole group together. It was supposed to be a nice evening, but I should have known better. The conversation was flowing, everyone catching up on life, talking about work, the kids, and all the usual stuff. And then, out of nowhere, Dad dropped the bomb. "Matt," he said, his voice casual but pointed, "I don't know why you keep trying so hard with that business of yours. You're never going to make it. You'll never amount to anything, and it's honestly sad to see you waste your time." I don't think anyone saw it coming. There was this thick silence that filled the room as soon as he said it. I looked around, and I could feel the tension rising. Adam just kept eating, not even looking up from his plate. It was like he didn't care, or maybe he was used to it. But me? I felt like I had been slapped across the face. I didn't know what to say. My mind went blank. I wanted to respond, to defend myself, to argue that he was wrong, but I couldn't. I felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room, like I couldn't breathe. It was like every insecurity I'd ever had about myself, every doubt, came crashing down on me all at once. The worst part was the way my dad said it. It wasn't angry. It wasn't even loud. It was just matter of fact, like he had already decided that I was a failure, and there was no point in pretending otherwise. And everyone else? They just sat there. No one came to my defense. No one said anything. I couldn't stay there. I excused myself early, mumbling something about needing to leave. I didn't even look at anyone as I grabbed my coat and walked out the door. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my hands shaking as I fumbled to get my keys. I just needed to get away. That night, I sat in my car outside my house for an hour, trying to wrap my head around what had just happened. Was I really that much of a failure? I've been running my own small business for a few years now, and while it hasn't been easy, I've made progress. It's not a big company, but it's mine, and I've put everything into it. And yet, here was my father, telling me it was a waste of time, that I'd never amount to anything. I tried to shake it off. I told myself I was being too sensitive, that it wasn't a big deal. But the more I thought about it, the more it gnawed at me. This wasn't the first time he'd said something like this. Over the years, there had been countless moments like this, subtle digs and criticisms, all under the guise of tough love. But this time felt different. It felt like it cut deeper than before, like I wasn't just being criticized for one mistake, but for who I was as a person. The next morning, I woke up to a missed call from Dad, followed by a voicemail. It was strange. He never calls that early. "Matt, I just wanted to apologize for what I said last night." His voice was awkward, like he didn't quite know how to put his words together. I didn't mean it. You know I'm just tough on you because I want the best for you. You'll figure it out, okay? It wasn't the first time he'd apologized like this. I'd heard it before. But this time, it didn't feel real. His words felt empty, like he was just saying them because it was the right thing to do, not because he actually felt bad. It was like he expected me to just brush it off and move on, like I always had. But something inside me snapped. For the first time, I didn't want to let it slide. I didn't want to play the part of the forgiving son anymore. I didn't want to be the person who always accepted the apology and pretended everything was fine. That's when I started thinking maybe it was time to stop being the one who always took the blame. Maybe it was time to stop playing by his rules, to stop letting him dictate my worth. But what did that even look like? What could I do that would finally make him realize that I wasn't a failure? The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I'd spent my whole life trying to prove myself to my dad, trying to get his approval, and for what? For him to tell me, in front of the entire family, that I'd never amount to anything? That I was wasting my time? I realized, in that moment, that I'd been living my life for him, not for me. And I didn't want to do that anymore. I spent the rest of that night in a fog. I tried to focus on work, but every time I thought about what had happened, my mind would spiral. The whole thing felt like one giant slap in the face. I've had my doubts about my business, sure. Running a small company isn't easy, and it hasn't been smooth sailing by any means. But the idea that my dad thought it was all worthless, it stung. I didn't call him back. I didn't even want to. I figured I needed some space to think. But part of me knew that I couldn't avoid him forever. He'd expect me to forgive him, to act like nothing happened. That was the pattern with him. Whenever he'd say something hurtful, he'd apologize like it was nothing, and I'd move on. But not this time. Not anymore. The next morning, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Adam. Hey, you good? Dad's been asking about you. I stared at the message for a while. I wasn't sure how to respond. Part of me wanted to tell Adam everything, to finally vent about what happened. But I didn't know if that was the right move. Adam was always the one who could do no wrong in my dad's eyes. He was the golden child, the one who followed the path laid out for him, and always made Dad proud. He didn't understand what it was like to be in my shoes. Still, I decided to reply. I'm fine. Just needed some time. Not sure what to say to him yet. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Matt, Dad's not the best with his words, but he's your dad. He didn't mean it. He's just hard on you because he wants the best for you. You know that, right? I read the message and it felt like a punch to the gut. It wasn't just Adam defending Dad. It was the fact that Adam always defended him, no matter what. And it made me realize something. Adam had no idea what it was like to be me. He'd never been the target of Dad's cruel remarks. He didn't have to deal with the constant pressure of being told you'll never be good enough. So, yeah, of course, he couldn't understand. But that's when it hit me. Maybe I didn't need my dad's approval anymore. Maybe I'd been so obsessed with trying to get him to see me as good enough that I hadn't stopped to think about what I really wanted. Maybe it was time to stop living for him, to stop looking to him for validation. I decided to make a plan. I couldn't change the past, but I could control what happened next. The business I'd been building for the last few years had grown significantly, more than my dad could ever know. I'd been working hard, silently pushing it forward. It wasn't just some hobby or waste of time, as he liked to call it. I'd been getting real clients, making real money, and my reputation was growing. But I kept it under wraps for a reason. I didn't want to deal with his criticism, so I hadn't told him about it. I started putting the pieces together. I began gathering documents, pulling together the financials, preparing a presentation. I wasn't going to give him the chance to dismiss it like he always did. This time, I was going to show him just how wrong he was. I was going to make it clear that I wasn't the failure he thought I was. But then, just as I was starting to feel like I might actually have a shot at showing him who I really was, Dad called again. This time, it was an actual call, not a voicemail. Matt. His voice was strained, like he was nervous. I've been thinking a lot about our last conversation. I just want to say, I'm sorry. I didn't mean what I said. You're my son, and I want you to be successful. I just don't want to see you waste your time, you know. I didn't know how to react. Part of me wanted to hang up. It felt like he was just saying what he thought I wanted to hear. The same old empty apology. But another part of me wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, he was actually trying. That maybe he was finally getting it. But I wasn't sure anymore. I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep hoping that he'd change, or if it was time for me to stop seeking his approval altogether. I let the silence stretch on for a moment before I finally spoke. I'm not the same person I was when I was a kid, Dad. And I'm not doing this for you anymore. I'm doing it for me. The silence on the other end of the line felt like it lasted an eternity. I could hear Dad breathing, trying to gather himself, trying to figure out how to respond to what I'd just said. But I didn't want to make it easy for him anymore. I didn't want him to be able to sweep things under the rug with an apology like he always did. "Matt," he said, his voice soft but sharp with the underlying irritation that I was no longer swallowing his words without question. "What are you trying to say? You're overreacting. You know I only want the best for you." I wanted to scream. I wanted to remind him that the best he wanted for me always meant sacrificing my own desires and happiness. I had spent my entire life in the shadow of his expectations, chasing after a version of success that wasn't even mine. But instead, I stayed quiet. I didn't trust myself not to say something I'd regret. So, I simply ended the call with, "We'll talk later." After I hung up, I sat there, staring at the phone, still burning with the resentment I had tried so hard to bury. This wasn't just about Dad anymore. It was about the whole family, my mom, Adam, even my aunt and uncle who were always quick to chime in with their well-meaning advice. I didn't have to think too hard to know how they'd react to me standing up to Dad. I'd seen it all before. Mom would insist I was just being sensitive. Adam would play the middleman, trying to smooth things over, pretending like everything could go back to normal. But what I had realized, more than anything, was how much they had taken me for granted. They never understood the toll it took on me to live under Dad's thumb. And then I remembered something that could finally give me the edge I needed. For the past couple of years, I'd been quietly building up my business, hustling in the background without their knowledge. I hadn't told them a single thing about the success I was seeing. They would never get it. They'd always assume it was just some pipe dream, a hobby, or something I was dabbling in. But what if it wasn't just about proving them wrong anymore? What if it was about showing them that I didn't need their approval or validation to be successful? That was the turning point for me. I had nothing to prove to them. That night, while I was sitting in front of my computer, preparing a presentation for potential investors, I got a message from Adam. "Dad's really upset, Matt. He said he's trying to understand, but he doesn't know where this attitude is coming from. He doesn't understand why you're being so distant." That message felt like a slap. My brother always played the role of peacekeeper. He didn't get it. He had no clue what it was like to be constantly compared to the golden child, to have everything you did seem second-rate or dismissed. He had his own path laid out for him, and he stuck to it. No questions asked. I took a deep breath and typed out a response. "Adam, I'm not distant. I'm just done pretending. Dad's been putting me down my whole life, and you all just let it happen. He doesn't see me as his equal. He sees me as something to control, and I'm done with it." I hit send and sat back, wondering if I'd finally said something that would make him understand. But no, his response came in almost immediately. "Matt, that's not how Dad sees you. I get it. He's harsh sometimes, but he wants the best for you. He's your father. He loves you." I stared at the message, biting back a wave of frustration. Wants the best. That's what they all thought. They all believed his actions were just tough love. But it wasn't love. It was control. And I wasn't the only one who saw it that way. When I didn't respond right away, Adam followed up with a voice message. "Matt, I get that you're upset, but you need to stop being so stubborn about this. You're not going to fix anything by shutting everyone out. Dad's already worried about you." I almost laughed. Worried about me? Dad didn't worry about me. He worried about me living up to his standards. He worried about me sticking to his version of success, not about my happiness. But I didn't argue. I was done arguing with them. A few days later, when I thought the dust had settled, I got a call from Mom. Her voice was calm, but I could tell she was trying to hide her frustration. "Matt, I think you need to hear your father out. This isn't how we handle things. You're being unreasonable." Unreasonable? I couldn't help but scoff. I'm not the one calling my own son a failure in front of the whole family, am I? There was a long pause. Then, with an almost cold tone, she said, "Your father's just trying to make sure you don't make the same mistakes he did. You don't see it now, but you will later. He's hard on you because he wants you to succeed." "No," I said firmly. "He's hard on me because he doesn't see me as anything more than an extension of his own image of success. And I'm done trying to live up to that." I could almost feel her stiffen on the other end of the line. But she didn't respond right away. She just sighed. "You know," she said finally, "it's not just about you. Your whole future depends on the choices you make now." I took a deep breath. This wasn't going to go anywhere. Not with Mom, and not with Dad. So, I ended the call, feeling the weight of everything settle on my shoulders. They weren't just trying to control me. They were trying to control my future, and I had been playing along with it for far too long. Update. After that conversation with Mom, things didn't get any easier. If anything, they got worse. The tension in the house was palpable every time we were all in the same room. Dad's passive-aggressive comments became more frequent, and Adam, caught in the middle, kept trying to mediate, but it was like a broken record. He'd send me messages asking me to calm down or just talk to Dad, but he didn't get it. He never would. I wasn't upset over the things Dad said anymore. I was angry that they thought I would just let it slide. I could see where this was heading, and it wasn't good. Dad was getting more frustrated with me. Mom was blaming my attitude, and Adam kept sending me guilt-trip texts about family and how we all need to stick together. It felt like they were all ganging up on me, not even considering how much I had sacrificed just to make them happy. So I did it. I made the decision to put my plan into motion. I had been holding back, trying to keep the peace, but I was done being silent. I spent the next couple of weeks gathering everything I had built up with my business, financial records, testimonials from clients, projections for the future, and I set up a meeting with a few investors. I knew that the time had come for me to show them that I wasn't a failure. I wasn't just some kid who couldn't figure things out. And that's exactly what I did. I set up a meeting with a potential buyer for my company. I knew that if this went well, the family would have no choice but to respect what I had built. They wouldn't be able to ignore it anymore. They could no longer call me a failure if I had this kind of success to show for myself. When the deal went through, I finally felt the weight lifting off my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to gain their approval. I didn't care if they saw my business as a fluke or if they continued to call it a waste of time. It was mine, and it was real. I didn't immediately tell anyone about the deal, but eventually, I had to. Adam found out when he stumbled upon the contract I'd been preparing for closing. At first, he tried to downplay it. "Wow, that's great, Matt. But Dad's going to be pissed you didn't tell him." And I was just tired. Tired of pretending to care about their opinions. I called Dad later that day. "I made the deal," I told him. "It's done." There was silence on the other end. For the first time in years, I could hear the shock in his voice. "What deal?" he asked, almost accusingly. "The business," I said, my voice calm. "I've been working on it in the background for a while now. You didn't know because I didn't think you'd take it seriously. But I'm selling it now. It's worth more than you ever gave it credit for." His response was cold. "I see. And now you think you can just walk away from everything?" I didn't respond right away. What was there to say? He wouldn't understand. It wasn't about walking away from my family. It was about walking away from the expectations they set for me. Expectations that never made room for me. So here I am now, a few weeks after everything has unfolded. The sale is complete, and I've got the financial stability I needed to move forward. But the family? They're still stuck in their ways. My dad's been distant, and Adam's been trying to get us to talk. Mom's sending me passive-aggressive texts about family being more important than money. The thing is, I'm not sorry for what I did. I'm proud of what I've built. But I can't help but feel a little guilty for how things turned out. Did I do the right thing? Should I have tried harder to keep the peace with my family? Or was this the only way for me to break free from their control? So, Reddit, am I the a-hole here? Did I go too far? Or did I just finally stand up for myself? I really need some perspective on this, because right now, I'm feeling a mix of relief and regret. If you enjoyed the story and want to hear more like this, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment below with your thoughts. Do you think Matt was right to stand up to his family? Or was there a better way to handle things?